Hey, I wasn't gonna do anything there. Welcome to a video about 5 dumb mistakes that will destroy your guns. Because honestly, we've all been guilty of some of these mistakes at some point in time, myself included. Clearly, I own a Dremel, but these are things I would love newcomers to avoid, especially when it comes to taking care of your firearms. And of course, some of us also have been doing this for a long time and may just be completely ignorant. I have had my moments. So I want to jump right into it. What's the first mistake I see happening quite often that can literally destroy your firearms, okay? The first one is over or improperly cleaning your guns. Now, full stop. I want you to clean your guns. You should keep your weapons well maintained and ready to go in case you need them. However, you can overdo it. And sometimes you can overdo it to the point of making your guns inoperable. And that's going to be a problem, right? So here's a couple examples of that just to give you some ideas of what to watch out for and maybe where to hold back a little bit, right? So one big one is where people take their AR-15 bolt and they scrape it because it's covered in carbon fouling. And of course, scraping it is very satisfying because it comes off very nicely. However, in that process, people often scrape a little too much and actually start removing material. And when that happens, you no longer have a good gas seal in the system, and next thing you know, your gun is no longer cycling. So that's a good example of over cleaning and using harsh tools where it can actually ruin your gun's functionality. Now, the same thing can be said about over lubrication. Excess lubrication, especially in certain systems like semi-automatic striker-fired pistols, for example, can be very problematic because if that excess lubrication gets into the striker channel, it can cause blockages from debris or from attracting additional fouling or dust or whatever might get in there, and then you no longer have your striker reliably igniting the primers on your ammunition, so your gun no longer functions. And it's one of those ones that happens a lot because people really don't think that too much lube could be a bad thing, right? Because we just want the metal to be able to move easily. But unfortunately, if it gets into the wrong places of your gun, it can cause catastrophic failures. So this is a big one. If you're scraping the inside of your AR-15 receiver with a stainless steel brush, you should probably stop because steel will eat aluminum every single time, and that's another mistake people do quite often. Now, here's something else that really annoys me. If you've ever received random text messages telling you about lost packages or had emails offering you a free computer, you've likely been victimized by data brokers. These are companies that sell your data without your consent to marketers, scammers, and even stalkers, all while earning billions of dollars in the process. Legally, they have to remove your information if you ask, so of course, they make the entire process confusing and excruciating, which is where today's video sponsor comes in. Aura is an all-in-one digital security asset that can quickly remove your information from these data broker sites and keep it off. I've used Aura for this exact purpose, and I'll be honest, the amount of data broker sites my information appeared on was alarming. Almost immediately after creating my account, Aura had already identified multiple security issues. If you use my link, aura.com/magicprepper, not only will you find out if your information is on these scandalous sites, but you'll also be provided with alerts if your info is found on the dark web, real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking, 24/7 monitoring to keep your identity secure, a secure VPN, antivirus, password manager, and other utilities, not to mention a US-backed customer support that's always available. Plus, just for peace of mind, Aura included $5 million of identity theft insurance protection with US fraud experts available to help at any time. Finding out my information was being sold for malicious purposes ticked me off. So Aura was an easy decision. Stick it to the data brokers and secure your online presence. Once again, use my link aura.com/magicprepper to try Aura for free for 14 days and take control of your digital footprint. Big thanks to Aura for supporting the channel. Now, what's the second mistake that I see happening all the time that can be catastrophic for your guns and downright dangerous? That's using the wrong or bad ammunition. And this applies to reloads to a certain degree as well, but don't freak out. I'm a reloader, I get it, but we have to be honest about this one, okay? So, first off, what do I mean by wrong ammunition? So, for example, my local gun store has signs up all over the store that say 38 Super is not 38 Special because it's such a common issue that they run into. People will buy the wrong ammunition just because they don't quite understand what they're doing. It happens with 9mm Luger and 9mm Makarov and all other types of examples. And this, of course, can cause a lot of issues if someone were to force the wrong ammunition into their gun and pull the trigger, which people have done weirder things. So this is an issue. And of course, the same can be applied to people who have 5.56 AR-15s and 300 blackout AR-15s, and they mix up the ammunition and they blow up their gun. So make sure you're using the right ammunition and that you're aware of what your firearm is chambered for regarding cartridges. Now, what do I mean by bad ammunition? This is a big one, and it's something we run into a lot because we like to shoot. We want to shoot a lot. But to shoot a lot, you have to have a lot of ammo. So we want to buy it for as cheap as possible. Unfortunately, there is such a thing as bottom of the barrel, dirt, Turkish ammo that will blow your gun up eventually. And every time you pull the trigger, you're rolling the dice until you hit that one statistical probability of that round exploding your gun. And that's just what happens quite a bit. Search any forum online about issues with firearms. And a huge amount of the time, people will also then eventually let you know that the reason their gun is broken or having reliability issues is because I'm also using the cheapest possible ammo I could find. And it's from some obscure manufacturer that has no reputation and doesn't really care if it works in your guns or not. So please make sure you're buying decent quality ammo. It doesn't have to be expensive, and it doesn't have to be exactly name brand, but use something that has some level of reputation to it, so that way you can say what I'm feeding my gun isn't going to destroy it, right? This is an issue. And this can be applied to things like using steel case ammo on certain firearms that are more prone to breakage because of it, or just adding additional wear to your firearms by using steel cased ammo. There's a lot of things that you can apply to this, but in reality, the biggest issue is unknown manufacturers of unknown quality letting you shoot whatever ammo they found in a Cold War bunker that's been in there from 80 years ago with no climate control, right? Because that's a real thing that does happen, and I swear, almost every time somebody's gun's not working on a forum, or it broke or exploded, the ammo they're using is bad. Or it's reloads, which is why that's also a problem. Reloads are just not consistent. Now, for hand loaders who really take it to a professional level because they want the best accuracy humanly possible, yeah, it's going to be consistent. But if you're reloading just to shoot on the cheap, there's a chance, a higher chance than buying factory ammo, that at some point in time you're going to make a mistake, or you're going to buy reloads from a company that makes a mistake, and you're going to have something go wrong, like a squib load or something along those lines. And of course, that can also damage or completely destroy your guns. And there's a reason why manufacturers won't warranty damage that was caused by reloads. They can't guarantee the ammunition was loaded correctly to spec. So that's why choosing the right ammunition is so important, and avoiding bad ammo is just a good idea. Look, I reload, I shoot my own reloads, but I understand the risks involved. And if you're only saving a cent or two per round by buying this super dirt cheap ammo, maybe just buy something from a reasonably reputable manufacturer, so that way you're feeding a gun you might want to rely on one day to save your life something decent, right? You wouldn't put some weird gas you found on the side of the road in your car just because, well, it was free, right? So just keep that in mind. Now, what's the third common mistake that can literally break your gun? Forcing your way through a malfunction. This can be an issue because a lot of times when a gun stops working, people don't want to admit that it actually could have a problem, and so they'll just force it to work one way or the other. And this can often break your gun in the process. For example, you should only have to hit your forward assist 2 times maximum in order to get that bolt to go home. And if for some reason the bolt's still not going into battery after those 2 taps, something else is wrong. But banging on your forward assist with a hammer just to get the bolt into battery isn't necessarily going to help anything and could just damage some things in the process. Maybe your bolt lug is broken and things aren't working out in the chamber the way they're supposed to, and now you're causing even more damage in that area. Or, for example, a slide doesn't want to go into battery, so someone just hits it on the back of the gun as hard as they can because, well, we need this thing to shoot. Well, now you might have ripped the case off your cartridge, causing even more issues. All types of things can occur when we force our way through malfunctions. Now, malfunction drills and everything else related to that are a good thing to practice. There are predetermined ways to clear malfunctions based on what malfunction it is and what platform you're using. So you should learn how to properly clear a malfunction, but you also should learn when a gun needs to be inspected and diagnosed regarding any issue that's occurring. So sometimes you need to unload your gun and figure out what's wrong. You can't always just do an emergency malfunction clear and expect things to get back up and running. So forcing your way through a jam, not necessarily the best idea, and often leads to bigger problems. All right, the fourth mistake that happens quite often that can just straight up destroy your guns is improper storage. But I don't mean the boring kind. We're not talking about, you didn't leave it in a cool, dry environment. I'm not talking about not having a dehumidifier in your safe. I'm talking about storing it improperly to the point where maybe you left it with some harsh chemicals on it, or maybe you stored it in a way that made it so it's not really operable the next time you need it. Like, this is something that you need to address. So, for example, when I first started messing around with guns, I made some of these mistakes, right? And I accidentally stored a Beretta 92 magazine covered in hops number 9. Don't ask why. I don't know what I was doing, but that's what occurred. That magazine was brown from there on out. It was no longer black. The finish was completely eaten away. And I've seen this happen on forums where people talk about, oh, the finish on this gun is trash. Yeah, because you left a solvent on it overnight. What did you expect to happen? So improper storage can literally destroy your guns and wreck the finish and do all types of stuff that you don't want it to do. So if you're cleaning your guns, especially in a heavy manner using harsh chemicals, ensure that everything is removed from the firearm before you just leave it in the safe to find out, a month later that you've got pitting all over the place. Not to mention, we should also be storing our guns in a way that makes them ready to use for if something occurs. They should be clean and lubricated and good to go. And if you're going to store them for the long term and it's not really a gun you plan on using, use like a silicone gun sock or something like that and just call it a day and don't think about it anymore. But regardless, store your guns properly, not just in a cool, dry place, but make sure there's not stuff on your guns that shouldn't be on there anymore. And make sure that if you pulled it out of the safe in an emergency, it will work properly because you didn't store it in a very dirty and inoperable manner, right? All right, so the 5th and final mistake that can destroy your guns if you're making it on a regular basis is going to sound weird at first, so please bear with me. But riding your slide or your bolt home can cause problems. Now, there's a specific issue that I see people do all the time that is going to increase wear and probably lead to parts breakage at some point in time. Let me demonstrate. So, we have a clear and empty chamber. Now, first off, what is riding the slide home? So you're supposed to load around by pulling back on the slide and letting it go. So that is the proper way to load around into the chamber from a magazine. Now, riding the slide home would be holding onto the slide, pulling it back, and then riding it home and keeping your hand and maintaining control of the slide in the process. Now, that's not generally a huge issue. It could cause, a failure to feed or some other issues that lead to an easy to clear malfunction, but still problematic to a degree. But the real problem that I see happening a lot is where people have their slide locked open, and then they take a round and they load it into the chamber by dropping one directly in. And then they drop their slide right on top of that. And the problem here is that your extractor is not designed to go over the top of the rim of the cartridge. It was designed to lead in front of the rim of the cartridge while feeding the round from the magazine into the chamber. So you just increased additional wear onto your extractor, and you're putting it into a position where it's more likely to break the tooth or just eventually break in general. So go ahead, unload that. That's what the 5th mistake is that I see happen quite a bit, especially with handguns, because people ghost load their CCWs to get that +1, but that's not the way to do it. You want to load it from the magazine and not ride the slide home in order to make sure everything is fully seated properly in battery and that your extractor is being treated properly as well. So those are the 5 mistakes that can literally break your guns. And I see them a lot, and they happen all the time, and I'm sure you might have been guilty of some of them. So leave any other mistakes below down in the comments. That way we can help teach other people or just discuss some of the mistakes we've ran into personally throughout the years. But these are real things that can literally break your guns. Not to mention a couple other quick mentions is like using cheap magazines is a great way to have your gun not work right anymore, and in some cases add additional damage if it starts trying to double feed or do weird stuff that's not supposed to happen on a regular basis. So use good magazines. And of course with handguns, one of the biggest reasons for malfunctions is just not buying a Glock. So sorry I said that, but it's true. So leave comments down below. Let us know your thoughts, and I thank you for your support. Big thanks to Aura for supporting this video, and that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.